Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tanya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner, and I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests to demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future. Because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 115 of the Tech Intersect podcast. This is May 17th, 2022. And in this episode, I welcome Reverend Wendy Hamilton to the show to talk about how cryptocurrencies and other digital assets fit into the larger narrative and goal of progressive politics, economic justice, and what she calls a human-centered economy. Rev Wendy is a 2022 Democratic Party primary candidate in Washington, D.C., running to become the district's delegate in the United States Congress. And Rev Wendy is an ordained minister, social justice advocate, and mother of one, and a double bison, having received 2 degrees from Howard University, a bachelor's in human development, and her master's degree from Howard University School of Divinity. Having worked professionally in communications on Capitol Hill as an adjunct professor of communications, and recently as an executive assistant to Ben Jealous, formerly president and CEO of the NAACP at the headquarters in Baltimore, Rev Wendy participated in initiatives on criminal justice reform, civic engagement, economic inequality, and environmental justice, just to name a few. Her professional background includes work in the areas of education, human services, nonprofit advocacy, communications, and chaplaincy. She was a part-time pastor of Open Door Metropolitan Community Church in Germantown, Maryland, and most recently served as director of spiritual and cultural outreach for 2020 presidential candidate Andrew Yang. Her mantra and mission is to manifest justice for all. So this is a power-packed and inspiring conversation I'm sure you will enjoy. Before we get started, a quick reminder on digital safety. There are a lot of scammers out there on social media impersonating me and other crypto educators and trailblazers, and we need your help. Now hear this. I will never slide into your DMs to say peace and blessings or hey. I will never reach out to solicit your time or your money like ever. So be careful and make good choices. FYI, I've developed an entire free 99 masterclass about the topic. So check out secureyourcryptobag.com for more information. That's secureyourcryptobag.com for more information. Now that we're clear, please take a moment to follow this podcast and then like, share, and comment so that others who would benefit from this content can find it. Okay, it's time to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I am so very pleased and excited to welcome Reverend Wendy Hamilton, aka Rev Wendy, to the show to talk about how cryptocurrencies and other digital assets fit into the larger narrative and goal of progressive politics and economic justice. Rev Wendy is a 2022 Democratic Party primary candidate in Washington, D.C. to become the district's delegate in the United States Congress. Now, Rev Wendy is an ordained minister, social justice advocate, mother of one, and a double bison, having received 2 degrees from Howard University. Her professional background includes work in the areas of education, human services, nonprofit advocacy, communications, and chaplaincy. We will talk about all of that and more in a moment. But first, Rev Wendy, fellow bison, welcome.
Yes. H2.
You know.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I was holding myself back because I was about to do it 2 times in my intro, but I was like, no, she's going to feel me organically. We're going to do it. It's going to be a thing. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're so busy, particularly at this moment in time with the lead up to all of the primaries. So much going on in the world. As we were talking as a lead into this conversation, just identifying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things all going on at the same time. Before I even move forward, how are you? Just how are you in terms of your soul, your spirit moving through this space? How are you?
Well, let me just say in this moment, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. And then to answer your question, I think my word for today is I'm maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments where I can feel a bit more overwhelmed than others. As you mentioned, this is primary season. Our primary here in DC is June 21st, which is about 40 days away, roughly.
Right.
But the difference is that this year they are mailing ballots to all voters because of COVID precautions, and that they had done that in 2020 as well. And they opted to do it again just to be safe, because we're not an automatic mail-in city, soon to be state. But because of,
let's go statehood. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yes.
But because of the, current conditions, they thought let's continue this for the 2022 primary, which means that ballots are going to begin mailing out this Monday, May 16th. Mm-hmm. So it's here. You know what I'm saying? June 21st is not the primary. Yes. That's the last day for you to vote. But it
that's the right way to think of it. Exactly.
Yeah, it is here. We'll still have early voting. We'll still have that primary day. But essentially, voting can begin as early as next week when the ballots begin going in the mail.
Is registration all done in the district?
Yeah, it was. Well, they have up until actually the end of this month, the 31st of this month, to register. Yes. So.
All right. So folks in the district, you heard that. I'm going to remind you of that at the end of this conversation. Yeah. But let's dive into your life before deciding to throw your hat into the proverbial ring of politics. And then a follow-up to that, of course, is going to be why politics? I think you'll say that in the original answer. But why now?
Those are 3 heavy questions.
Yes.
What was I doing before?
Say, reflect on that.
Yes. Yeah. Let me start with the first part. What was I doing before politics? Well, before politics, as you read in my bio, I've been a chaplain. That was what I was most recently doing prior to this particular move. But chaplaincy and ministry, I was a part-time pastor for a while as well. That was something that a personal call I felt on my life that I wanted to fulfill after graduating from Howard School of Divinity, and got the opportunity to serve as a chaplain at Georgetown University here in DC for first-year students who have a little anxiety leaving home. I was also at Georgetown University Hospital working with terminally ill patients and in the labor and delivery suite. And I also had a chance to be a chaplain at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore for a year. I was a trauma chaplain resident in the emergency room. So I have seen some things. Let me just
Right. So you're perfect. You're perfect for politics. I see now.
Ain't nothing. I ain't scared of nothing. You understand what I'm saying? I'm ready. I've been trained in the trenches, and I'm not a politician, and that's a good thing.
Right.
I've always been interested in politics, and from a religious standpoint, some people get nervous when they say, "Oh, well, she's a minister, she's a pastor. We don't want religion in politics." That's a part of who I am, but that's not the basis with which I'm running. That's my foundation. That's my core. I believe we could use a moral renaissance in our politics, but for me, this is more about serving people, about social justice, looking out for the least of these, taking care of the poor and the widow and the oppressed and those who feel like they don't have a voice. And so it really was a natural fit. I've always volunteered for campaigns. I've been a social justice advocate. I worked with Ben Jealous at the NAACP when he was the youngest president in the history of the organization. I was his executive assistant there for 4 years. I've, volunteered, like I said, on Obama's campaign and some local things around here. So it was always sort of a passing interest of mine, if you will. I never necessarily saw myself as a candidate until Trump. day
Mm-hmm.
where I got a little bit concerned about our future and what was happening, in our politics. And during that
Right.
time, I also had the fortunate opportunity to serve as the director of spiritual and cultural outreach for the Andrew Yang presidential campaign in 2020.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
I read about him back in 2018 when he first announced. There was an article in the New York Times about universal basic income and how he was championing that, and how he wanted to help people that were feeling unheard, that got left behind. And he was talking about the threat of automation and how so many
Right.
jobs were going to be automated away and we were going to be losing people and they were going to be falling through the cracks. It made me think about my upbringing in Ohio and my grandparents who
Yes.
worked in the factories that got shipped overseas. And I started thinking about how they would have really fared a little better if they had had a universal basic income, just a lifeline to get them through some of those tough times. So that resonated
Right.
with me. I reached out to the campaign, ultimately joined it. And so that was my first real insider's look, right? To be on
Right.
the backside of a campaign to get to see how the sausage was made. And
Right.
so, but little did I know that in and of itself was preparing me for what my next step would be into politics for myself.
Absolutely. There's no wasted effort. And oftentimes we don't know, we see through the glass darkly.
Come
So in
on.
our best understanding of what's going on in the moment, when we look back, we can see how steps are being ordered to prepare us for such a time as this, as we were talking about. So
Okay.
then your preparation
Mhm.
outside of the traditional notions of politics actually resonates with what is, I think, and you tell me your thoughts about why it's important for folks like you with that particular vision and focus on community and reimagining what the future will be, of why it's important right now for you to run.
Because I think our politics is in desperate need of an infusion of a moral renaissance, as well as a reconnection to the people who they have been sent there to serve. For whatever reason, our politicians forget the system is powerful, in terms of its ability to corrupt good intentions if you're not solid in your resolve
Right.
to stay true to what it is you believe motivated you to run in the first place. And I'm not speaking of anyone
Right.
in particular, I'm speaking in general, that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what I see happening now is people disconnected from the human experience and what is truly
Mm-hmm.
going on with the everyday person, the working class, the non-working class, the small business owner, the single mother, the stay-at-home mother. And so for me, I think we need an influx of just regular everyday people who are bringing life experience to the table to
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
to be that voice that seems to be missing. Folks, when you disconnect from the folks who have sent you, you get to a place where you cannot, in my opinion, authentically
Mm-hmm.
represent their needs. You can think you know what's best for them, but if you're not out here spending time and talking with folks and finding out what's really going on the ground, you're
Right.
making assumptions. And so I'm on the ground, and that's why I say to my constituents here in Washington, D.C., that I hope to represent in Congress. I say, I'm not just running to represent you. I am you. Look, I'm one
Mm-hmm.
paycheck off of a crisis just like you are, baby. So the way
Talk
I'm
about
going
it.
to come to the table with your voice is going to be a little bit different than somebody who's never been here. When we're talking about eviction moratoriums being lifted, and when we're talking about canceling the child tax credits, and when we're talking about universal health care because
Mm-hmm.
people are having to choose between their rent or their mortgage and their insulin. I'm not
Right.
talking to you about something I've heard. I'm talking to you about something I know. And I think we need more of that.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
So well said, and I see that thread woven so well through your entire platform. I'm going to tick off for our listeners, all of them. I want everybody to go to revwendyforcongress.com to really dig in. I only have you for a short period of time, so I've highlighted some things specifically at the intersection of economic justice and technology that we'll talk about in a minute. But I want everybody to know all of the richness of your platform. Obviously, we got to lead with statehood. Universal basic income. You gotta like 51. Let's go.
Come on.
Universal basic income, which we'll definitely talk about. Education, obviously, as a law professor and a lifelong learner, it's so critically important. Criminal justice reform, universal health care, human-centered economy, which I heard you also start to lead into earlier, and I definitely want to double back on that. Obviously, we're on Tech Intersect, so we're going to talk crypto and blockchain technology, and if you have a rabbit hole experience, please share it. But also, I'm a Black queer woman, so LGBTQ plus rights are critically important to me. Ranked choice voting, housing, mental health, and the crisis of mental health in the midst of the pandemic. I wish we could say, now we're all recovering. It's literally PTSD that is reoccurring every day with every wave and every moment. Every day. So, and literally around the world, it's not an isolated incident too. So we'll look back, God willing, and the creek don't rise on this time, and studies will go on about what's happened collectively, and hopefully to remind us as part of a silver lining, if there is one, that we rise and fall together globally. Correct. But it definitely starts locally, and then it's global. And that obviously ties into the last part of your platform that is not the least, because all of these I could have said them first. I'm just going in the order that I have them in my own particular notes, but environmental justice, which is so critically important too. So I'm going to say law, pause, and reflect on those things, but go into the economic side, even though all of them kind of connect to economics, in particular, universal basic income, the idea of human-centered economy, which I'm just really excited to hear you talk about, and obviously the crypto. So let's start with human-centered economy, because I think that gets us to the other two things that I want to talk about today.
Well, they probably do, because they all intersect. And the human-centered economy is an economy that is super hyper focused on ways that all of us can thrive together, that are providing equitable policies and programs and supporting innovation, supporting progressive ideas like a universal basic income that would, remove the middleman, putting money in people's hands and trusting them to be able to do with it what they feel like they need to do, and not feeling threatened in some way or feeling as if you have to dictate to people what they need to do with what you're giving them. That means testing is inhumane, and it traps people in poverty, because what they tell you is, we're going to give you these benefits, but we want you to go out and get a job, but don't get too much job, because if you get too much job but not enough to cover everything, we're still going to take away and you're still going to have to struggle because you made a little bit too much than we wanted you to make, but not enough for you to survive. And that's a mousetrap, wheel that I've been on myself, and it's undignified. And so I want to liberate people. And so universal basic income is a way to do that. And we've seen it when we saw these stimulus checks come in, when we saw the child care tax credit come in. People used it to buy groceries. They used it to take care of their car. And that money goes right back into the economy, which begins to stimulate the economy. So it's a win-win. Same thing with crypto. And I know we'll get to that, but crypto removes the middleman. It takes out the banks. It takes out all of the red tape. And it liberates people of color in essence, giving them the opportunity to control their own financial destiny. Even if they have to send money, and crypto is global, so we don't have to worry about all the fees that people try to tack on. If you're trying to make money transfers and that to take care of your family and things of that nature. And so I saw all of these working together, as many things as we can tools make available for us to live into our humanity humanity is considered a human-centered economy approach for me.
That's really powerful. And I love that, and how you were able to weave in the other parts, because it isn't isolated. It is not siloed.
Mhm.
It's part of why I love the technology so much,
Right.
of disintermediating or removing the gatekeepers
Yes.
that were put in place on purpose. Like, I think this grand experiment has actually worked quite well, because it wasn't built for systemically marginalized populations. It was working well.
Yes.
It's not working so well now for the people who it's intended to serve.
Correct.
But if we're going to hold people to the promise, then it needs to include all of us. And if
Exactly
we
right.
need to use technology to do what our laws haven't really been able to do, what in some sense government has not always been able to do, and certainly the private system hasn't been willing to do. If you're a for-profit, you're
Mhm.
really in business to make money,
Right.
and you're going to do it by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Then onto the scene with a gangster lean technology
Yes.
by, Satoshi, whoever he, she, or they are. We
Right.
don't know,
We don't
right?
know. Right.
Tell me about how you even learned about Bitcoin and other crypto. What's your rabbit hole experience, if you have one?
Before I get to that, let me say something too, just to what you said. It's so
Yes.
important that we have these opportunities and they aren't siloed. The more the merrier, because everybody is different. They're cut differently, and so they're going to adapt to things differently. One tool
Right.
may be more useful for them, may make more sense for them. I just want everybody to strive and thrive. And so with the GDP, if you, a human-centered economy to me measures well-being, measures mental health, measures happiness, if you can measure that, and joy, health, health outcomes and things like that.
Right.
So much is predicated on what we produce. We're human beings. We're
Right.
not simply producers. And to suggest somehow that things aren't healthy or going well when we're not producing enough, and base it on a particular number, that's not human-centered, that's production-centered. And
Yes.
we're not looking at the quality of life. And so a human-centered economy factors in quality of life as well. So I just wanted to point that out
Absolutely.
too.
Yes, it's an important point.
Yes. But as far as my rabbit hole experience, I can't say that I have a full rabbit hole experience yet, only because I'm running a campaign now and I can't.
Right. You have a few other things to do.
I
Right.
get lost. It's so tempting. And I got sent 18 books that I need to read.
Later. We'll get to those.
The
They're not going
Bitcoin
anywhere.
Standard and,
Yes,
Bitcoin
yes.
Zay's book, The Black Billionaire.
Yes.
And, I've been on 18 clubhouses and 22 Twitter spaces and, which I appreciate, because what they're excited
Yes.
about is, a pro-crypto candidate. And that was
Right.
intentional on my part. And what happened was, as crypto was kind of coming into the mainstream, if you will, a couple of summers ago, like right around the time that I was launching my campaign, because I have been on the campaign trail about 15 months, but we can talk about that a little later. That's
I see.
you have to, when you run against a 32-year incumbent, you can't do that in 3 months, but we'll get to that.
Right. You can't start yesterday. Right.
Hello, caller. But in the early stages of my campaign too was this big, rush and talk, and it, became a big part of the conversation, and it was Bitcoin everything, and then Doge came up, and just all these different coins, and I ain't gonna get into it with my Bitcoin maxi, so I need y'all back up. Because
let's go. See, you know enough to know that.
Listen,
so
I love them.
yes.
I love y'all, but
yes, I love maxis too.
I love y'all, but back down for one moment. Just let me speak.
All right, hear me out.
Yeah.
Hear me out.
So as I'm listening to all this, I'm saying to my campaign folks, I want to learn more. I feel like I need to know about this. I think this is part of the future. I want to be a forward-thinking candidate. And I happen to have a couple of people on my team who had been in the space. One of who turned out to be my, crypto advisor, if you will. He had been in the space. He's the ETH guy. He had been in there since 2014. So he was like, Wendy, he said, it might make sense for you to start to embrace this, or at least learn. He said, because the crypto community is looking to begin having conversations with the political community, because these are conversations that are going to need to take place. And then I looked up and saw that there's a blockchain caucus in Congress. I didn't know that. I said, a bipartisan one. I said, well, who are they?
Yes.
And when's the last time they met? And what are they talking about? So he said, I think that it would be cutting edge for us to listen. I said, I'm willing to hear the pitch. I'm willing to listen to it. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to jump on this just because it's a fad, But if I can tie it into my policy, then I can support it wholeheartedly. I have to, I have to be able to, has to resonate, connect with me. I can't just, well, that's the end thing. Let's do it. I didn't want it to appear like I was being some kind of opportunist or whatever.
Right.
But I was excited about the fact that I could sense this was meaningful. And then when I started learning about how it was liberating people around the world, how Nigeria was, running away with an El Salvador, and I was like, oh no. Yeah, I need to learn, because I want to be pro innovation, pro technology, and I see it as an economic justice tool, and that ties into my platform. So I said, how do I tiptoe into the space? I said, I would love to be able to even receive crypto donations, which Andrew Yang, when I mentioned I was on his campaign, he was one of the only presidential campaigns. He and I think Eric Swalwell were the only two who accepted crypto donations in 2020. So, being around a type of forward-thinking candidate like him, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to learn more. So we actually entered the space by deciding to have an NFT fundraiser. Okay. So we reached out to a local NFT artist, because we wanted to also tie it into DC. The other thing about crypto, especially for here in DC, it hasn't quite caught on yet in the conversation. I'm talking about DC proper, not Washington on the Hill. There's a Washington and then there's a DC. But so locally, it hasn't become that big of a conversation, but of course, nationally. So my thinking was, how do I want to incorporate it into my policies, but also how do I connect it locally? How do I begin to find out what's happening here, or even begin to inform the electorate in DC a little bit more about it? So we heard that there were some NFT artists. We reached out. One of them, he came alongside us. He offered some of his pieces. We set up to have an NFT fundraiser. And lo and behold, the night of the fundraiser, someone hacked into his OpenSea and took all of his artwork and some money. It was terrible. Which unfortunately is some of the fears that people have when you're talking about crypto, and the ability to hack, the vulnerability and all that. So we weren't able to have it, unfortunately. And I felt very sorry that happened, but it also, prompted me to get myself more up to speed on the security pieces and be knowledgeable about that as well. So from there, it like I said, it led to, Bitcoin and learning a lot more about that. And I had, a couple of folks that kind of took me under their wing. I and gave me some information, sent me books. And Dennis Porter, I remember, had me on, and Ryan Selkis.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are my people. So, but again, they were very much interested in connecting with the political community, with candidates. And then with me being a Democratic candidate, it was even more so. And that was the other thing about embracing crypto from a Democratic standpoint. I wanted to be able to push back on what was certain to be the reservations that people had around the environmental impact and mining and all of that. And so one of my other team members was like, well, there's so many other uses for blockchain technology. There's even, environmentally safe coins. And, so we got to walking and talking, and he put together a whole 7 uses. That's on my website, 7, environmentally friendly uses for blockchain technology. And he got into recycling. I mean, they was just gone with it. And I was just
amazing.
So that's really my rabbit hole experience came through my team, because they were just like, yeah, what else you want to know? So they really and so I'm able to say now that I am pro crypto, because I actually believe, even despite what it's going through right now, that's just the nature of any financial tool that we have. You're going to have your ups, your downs, your bears, your bull markets. Hold fast. I do want to pray. Just say that I'm praying for those that have suffered some significant loss, because there has been financially. And I've seen a few posts even on Twitter where, some folks have maybe even taken their lives, and you never know. We're already in such a sensitive time still
Right.
with what we're going through. Some people are on the edge and they can't take
Mm-hmm.
one more thing. So I definitely want to lift those up who, may be feeling right now that they can't take any more. Please hang on,
Right.
please hang on. But yeah, that's how I got to the place of being considered a pro-crypto candidate.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Tech Intersect. Our conversation will continue in a moment, but first, a word on an exciting opportunity.
If you've tried to figure out crypto, DeFi, and NFTs on your own on YouTube University or Podcast College, and all you have to show for it are a lot of questions, but little, if any, forward progress, I invite you to visit advantageevans.com to get the answers you've been searching for about how to buy, store, and trade crypto and NFTs, and to access DeFi safely, legally, and confidently. Advantage Evans Academy offers everything from full-service VIP onboarding to prof-guided on-demand and cohort-based courses, as well as an engaging, informative, and supportive membership club, AE Explore Live, for as little as just $1 a day. This club is for you if you want to learn from well-respected crypto education experts like me, transform your relationship with money, generate wealth in the new digital cash economy, create digital ownership streams that lead to generational wealth, learn to vet, buy, store, trade, earn, and sell cryptocurrencies, engage in DeFi to lend and leverage your crypto, create, buy, and trade creative and collectible NFTs, and network with other crypto-curious enthusiasts in an inclusive environment. You'll gain all of that and more in a wonderful community of like-minded, lifelong learners ready to get in and to win. If that sounds like you, join us. Visit advantageevans.com to get immediate access to the resources you need and deserve. That's advantageevans.com. Let's go and let's grow.
And now, back to the conversation.
Well, I serve as an advisor to Maxwell Frost, who's running in the 10th district for Val Deming's old seat in Florida to go to Congress. And he's a very progressive candidate as well, who is focused. And he probably had a similar path to understand how does this connect to economic and social justice, and being willing to have the conversation and to listen outside of the echo chamber of either, if you don't have all crypto, then you're an idiot. And if you buy crypto, you're an idiot.
Exactly.
Like, what's in the middle for the rest of us? Right. So that makes sense to me.
And that's what I like to say. I said, cryptocurrency for me transcends ideology. It's not, partisan, or it shouldn't be. I know it's quickly becoming that, but we're trying to rescue it from that conversation because it can help everyone. It can benefit all of us. It doesn't have to be a political football. And so I feel like if you're someone who is in that camp, in terms of wanting a pro crypto candidate, who do you want on the Hill when the conversations about it come up?
If you're an engineer or a scientist, you love Formula One, you love cycling, you love learning about how new technologies are changing the world around us, then I thought you may want to listen into my new podcast, the Neil Ashton Podcast. We talk to leading engineers and scientists from around the world, hear about their life stories, hear about new technologies, and hopefully educate you and give you a better sense of how key things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, supercomputing are changing the world around us. If that sounds like it's something you might like, you should come and have a listen.
Absolutely. I've started to spend more time in DC, more on the regulatory than the legislative side, but on both, and doing some work here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as well. And I had a conversation, was it last week? We're talking about time within the last 2 weeks, because I'm not quite sure about time in the middle of a pandemonium. But anyway, recently I engaged with the acting comptroller of currency, Michael Sue, who started this conversation, these sessions around the state of education in financial education, and he started specifically with crypto.
Okay.
And in advance of that, there's a recent report, perhaps you've seen it, from Ariel Schwab, from Ariel Investments and Schwab Bank, about the latest statistics. When I saw the statistics, I was excited. When I saw how the extrapolation of the statistics to tell an analytical story, I was less enthusiastic about their conclusions.
Okay.
But let's highlight some of the, and I'll drop a link in the show notes to this. So I want everybody to DYOR. Rev Wendy does want you to do so as
That's
well. So I'll
exactly
drop
right.
the link for your educational purposes.
Right.
But 25% of Black Americans currently own cryptocurrency.
Correct.
Bitcoin and other, and there are over 19,000 different types of crypto. So we can have a full conversation at another time just about that. But 23% are, cited the excitement about crypto as the reason they even started investing. And the fact that Black Americans ranked crypto as one of, if not the best investment choice overall, and 68% of Black investors see cryptocurrency as risky versus 73% of their white counterparts. White counterparts meaning that they thought it was more risky. I wanted to know, so that was, all of those things are really interesting data points. And I'm interested, as an educator and a thought leader in the space, the why underneath it that gets to some of your platforms with respect to economics. What is it that makes a culture that tends to be very conservative in the financial space, because we go all the way back to the Freedmen's Bank, and then we can go all the way back to the enslavement period and everything that has happened with redlining and being underbanked and unbanked, or I recently last year went to get a loan. I have damn near perfect credit, paid off literally all of my debt. And basically I could have spent the next 2 years going back and forth with them over that. I decided not to take their little loan, and I got the house that I wanted to, and it's all paid in full.
Come on, somebody.
But that, is from a system of privilege and power to be able to move in that space. What is it about the current financial system that drives Black Americans to say, let me look at a space where there is no impediment to access, and it's transparent, not opaque, and we are leveling the playing field? It's not without its issues, but the number one asset being used to engage in criminal activity is still the dollar.
Correct.
So let's right size that. But I'm just interested in maybe your reflections. I know you haven't, maybe you've seen it, and I don't know, but just your thought about what is it about the present circumstance that makes crypto at least an interesting opportunity that we as a community need to know more about.
That it doesn't have the baggage that you just talked about. Bottom line, everything else, every other financial instrument, every other opportunity for financial investment, you can look in a history book and see somewhere there was an example of us being denied, of us being discriminated against, of us, being left out of the equation, not factored in. It's not tainted in that way. It is a ground floor financial opportunity. And we are an innovative people. We know how to, first of all, we know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. So let's
come on now. Come on with the rap lyrics. Let's go.
Don't get me started now. I'm feeling something in my right leg, honey. And
let's go.
So we know how to scratch and survive. We know how to create. We know how to put a meal together out of pig scraps that they left behind, thinking that we weren't going to make a delicacy out of it that people are still eating on today and serving on their table. But so when we see an opportunity to grow and to build and to prosper and thrive, that quote unquote they haven't gotten their hands into yet. Oh, we coming in and we taking over. That's just our nature. We can spot an opportunity. I think that's what you're seeing here. Is like, before it gets corrupted, before they, the whomever, the regulators, and then I know we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but before they can get in there and tell us we can't do it, let's do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This idea of legislative initiatives that are and regulatory initiatives that focus on protection of investors and consumers. Obviously, as an attorney licensed in 4 states, I get that. I'm all for that. But it's always calibrating so that it's not just serving some, but serving all. And too often, these financial avenues or the access to capital, the access to opportunity is this gated experience. So removing the gatekeepers in a way that still makes things safe and accessible is really a game changer. And it is creating opportunities to have a future
Yes.
that we just pontificate about, but
Right.
doesn't actually exist in real life.
Exactly.
And so, your thoughts on this calibration, there's some ideal balance between the protections. Obviously,
Mhm.
we have existing laws that said this type of activity is illegal.
Period.
You can use whatever tool you want,
Mhm.
but this behavior,
Right.
bad, right?
Exactly.
The tool in and of itself is not. And how do you get that balance to encourage innovation while protecting people?
Exactly. Mhm.
So when you think about, as we talked earlier about all of the parts of your platform that are woven together
Yeah.
to make sure that there's not just equality, but equity in terms of opportunity and participation in this grand experiment, you're imagining or reimagining a future that includes all of those things on your platform.
Right.
When you think about that, what do you see? What do you see?
I see my constituents here in DC in particular not giving up, not feeling like I'm not even going to pursue something because I already know I'm going to run into so many obstacles that it's not going to be possible. I see people taking risks. I see people not feeling like they have to, not feeling obligated to spend the rest of their lives doing something that they don't even enjoy doing. I see families thriving. I see independent artists getting the opportunity to explore their passions, and those entrepreneurs, getting a chance to try out their business ideas without feeling like they have to jump through any particular hoops. I see just a shift in the overall, like I was talking about earlier, the quality of life of the country itself.
Yes.
Because when the family is intact, whatever that family, however that family is constructed,
Sure.
and when everyone is healthy and they feel safe and they feel stable and they feel open to express and be who they are without any fear of repercussion. And I'm talking about safe, healthy things, in a legal way. I'm not saying,
Of course.
but you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying. I want the ideal. That might sound utopic, but I so think that it is possible. And I think that what is hindering that most of all is the way our economic system is set up. And so many people feel like they have a boot on their necks, that they don't even believe that they could ever be in a different situation than they
Right.
are right in this moment. And I don't think that's the promise of America. I don't think I want us to live up to our original intention, that we stated on what this country was founded upon. And that's what I see. So I see happier families and happier people and more content and creativity just thriving, and people feeling better and relating to one another better as a result, because their needs are met, and so and their neighbors' needs are met, and so even the
Right.
conversations we're having are different.
Yeah, we need a change. And we didn't go through this last 2+ years to come out unchanged for the better.
Correct.
We have a choice.
Correct.
We're co-creating this experience, so we have a choice. I want us to choose wisely, make good choices,
Yes.
so that our future is brighter than our past, and that we're learning from those experiences and realizing that this idea of the individual bootstrap, when a lot of people don't even have boots, is just not going to work.
Yeah, that was
It's not gonna
never a reality. That was a myth. And so I
Right.
want us to create a new reality.
Powerful. Well, I'm excited. I'm so glad that we're connected.
Yes.
I know Crypto Twitter is excited. I can't wait to share this with them.
Come on,
Um,
Crystal.
and certainly my listeners.
Yeah.
And so let's tell folks how they can learn more about you and your campaign.
Well, please check me out at RevWendyForCongress.com. You can get all the information that we've talked about today. My platform is there. There's some videos there, some of the events I've done, some of the podcasts that I've been on in the past as well, just talking about my pro-crypto stance and how I, came to be where I am as a candidate. I'm also on all social media. So you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Rev Wendy for Congress. Oh, and Twitter, Rev Wendy 3. But they also have me dancing on TikTok.
So let's go. Oh, I haven't seen that. I didn't make my way over there.
Oh, you did not?
Out.
Oh, you must go over to at Rev Wendy for Congress on TikTok. And I read something today actually that said that people are spending more time on TikTok now than they ever spent on Facebook even. Sometimes up to 44 minutes a day. On TikTok. Now, I can't be on there that long, but let me say
but I can give it 20. I can give it 20.
But what I will say is that my team encouraged me to get on there. My social media manager, she just said, I know the trends. We'll get together. I'll tell you, all you got to do is stand or dance or point or whatever. I'll go back and put all the, the editing on it and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, there are some of the most rich conversations that take place around policy on a 10-second statehood dancing video that I did. Wow. That even more substantive sometimes than the other platforms, because I'll put something up there like, what do you mean you don't believe DC needs statehood? And I'll just do a little something. And honey, in the comments, because y'all need to go back to Maryland. No, we don't. Do you even live here? And they go, because Article 8 of the Constitution, Section 23, and it is amazing. They go at it, and it is like civic engagement and discourse, and they are having real, genuine political conversation, and I love it. I said, the kids are all right. Go ahead, y'all, because
let's go.
Y'all are on top of it. So, so Rev Wendy for Congress, please check me out. Please spread the word. If you have any relatives in Washington, D.C., as was mentioned, I'm running against a 32-year incumbent and, who has citywide name recognition. I got started early, but, a year and a half ago, so I did break through. People do know I'm running, but it don't hurt to keep, reminding them, to vote for Rev Wendy. I'm people powered. I don't take any money from corporations. So I would love a donation as well. You can donate on my website, as was mentioned, and you can donate in US dollars and in crypto.
Let's go. I couldn't remember from earlier. If you hadn't said it, I would definitely ask. I'm going to drop those links in the show notes. And a final reminder for folks in the district.
The district.
Did you know that only 18% of eligible Washington, D.C. voters cast a ballot in the 2018 midterm primary elections? Folks, if somebody delivered 18% on the final exams that I am grading, I'm going to go on record and say that's going to be an F. That's a failing grade. I know you have it in you. I was born in the district. I'm a Bison baby. My parents both went to Howard undergrad. I graduated from Howard Law, and Washington, D.C. is so critically important to the entire makeup of this great nation. We have to participate. We have to be the change we seek. It all can happen, but it begins with you. Please, folks, get out and vote. Get educated. Get in line. Or send in your ballot.
Yes.
The day of election day is the end, not the beginning. Mm-hmm. So let's do that. And a rising tide lifts all boats. So we're going to do this together or not at all. So let's do it together, folks. Reverend Wendy, thank you so much for joining me. This is the first, but not the last. You're not only my friend in my head. Now you're my friend. So when I get back down there, I look forward to seeing you at some point IRL. I'm double boosted and always masked.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the platform. Thank you for what you're doing. Education and literacy is also so very important in this space. And that's something that I'm endeavoring to do. As I mentioned to you earlier, crypto isn't as central to conversations here in DC. So there's an education piece, we're trying to do here. I also talked with Naja Roberts. I know she does. That's my girl. I was on her podcast a while ago. And we were talking about the literacy pieces. And I'm looking around in DC and Bitcoin ATMs are popping up in some of
Absolutely.
the carryouts and things like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, before you with all them high fees on them. Wait a minute,
Right.
I haven't even had an opportunity. My folks haven't been educated properly. If they're going to get into the space, I want them to get into it from an educated and informed space.
Right.
So it's sisters like yourself
Mhm.
that, help make that information available, or that I
Right.
can direct our people to as a resource, so that we
Absolutely.
can take advantage of this, not from an emotional place, but from an informed one. So I want to thank you for your work.
Wow, I enjoyed that conversation so much. I hope you did too. I love how clear, committed, unbothered, and unbossed Rev Wendy is about what matters most: community and representation, of course, without taxation. Come on, statehood. And meaningful access to financial inclusion and equity in the new economy. Learn more about Rev Wendy's campaign at RevWendyForCongress.com. That's RevWendyForCongress.com. Look at here, y'all. We need to be the change we seek. It starts with us, but it begins with you. Before we sign off, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this episode and this podcast with your networks. Follow me on social medias and let me know what topics you'd like to hear more of and who you want to hear from. All right, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.
Stay in touch with host Tanya Evans via your favorite social media. On Twitter at TechIntersect. And on Instagram via the handle TechIntersect. This podcast has been produced by Stephanie Renee for Soul Sanctuary Incorporated.